By the third morning that gray sedan took the spot in front of my house, I stopped calling it bad luck and started calling it a pattern. By the end of that month, I'd figured out how to make sure nobody could ever choke off my gate again. And I did it without touching a car, raising my voice, or breaking a single rule. People act like I pulled off some genius revenge plot when really all I did was learn the rules better than the guy using them against me. I live on a tight little block just outside downtown. Old row houses, narrow sidewalks, iron gates, and never enough parking for the number of people trying to live there. Anybody who knows city life knows the deal street parking isn't yours. You get home late, you lose. Every block has a rhythm. And right in front of my place, just to the left of my gate, there was one space that usually worked out for me. Not reserved, not marked, just convenient. Close enough for groceries, far enough from the corner that traffic didn't make me nervous. For years, it was just there. Then one Tuesday evening, I came home and saw a gray sedan sitting in it. No big deal, I thought, maybe a guest. I parked half a block down, grabbed my bag, and forgot about it. But the next morning, I stepped outside with coffee, and that same gray sedan was still there, same angle, same little squeeze. By that evening, it was there again. A couple days later, I noticed the pattern gone early, back in the evening, mostly weekdays, hardly ever weekends. Whoever owned it wasn't visiting. They were commuting, and my block had become their cheap parking strategy. Now I understood the rules. Public street, public parking. I wasn't one of those people claiming the curb in front of my house like I owned it. But there's legal and then there's considerate, and those are not the same thing. My gate swings outward toward the sidewalk, old design, heavy iron. Needs just a little clearance to open all the way. Most people on the block know that. This gray sedan's driver liked to park tight. Not enough to fully block the gate, just enough to make everything more annoying. The first time it really got to me was on trash day. I swung the gate open to roll the bin out, and it stopped halfway with a dull little tap against that front bumper. I stood there staring at it, hand still on the handle, like maybe the car would get embarrassed and move itself. It didn't. So I turned the bin sideways and wrestled it through the gap like I was solving a puzzle before breakfast. A couple days later, I had groceries delivered. The driver tried the gate stop, then looked at me and said, this thing always do that. Only when somebody parks like geometry is optional, I said. He laughed, but we still had to pass the bags through one at a time. When the same small irritation keeps showing up in your daily life, it stops feeling small. Then came the morning that tipped me over. I was already late, phone buzzing, brain on fire. I pulled the gate open and same story, halfway stuck against that gray sedan again. And something in me went very calm. Not angry, just clear. This wasn't about a parking spot anymore. This was about being inconvenienced at home often enough that I was starting to treat it like normal. That evening, I finally met the driver. I heard a car door click behind me, turned around, and there he was. Mid-30s, maybe, clean haircut, button-down shirt, laptop bag, looked like the kind of guy who says, let's circle back, and means it. That's your car, I asked. Yeah, he said. Why? I pushed the gate open until it tapped his bumper. Because it doesn't clear when you park this close. He leaned in, looked at the gap, then shrugged. I mean, it's street parking. I'm not blocking it. I know, I said. I'm not saying don't park here. I'm asking you to leave a little room so the gate can open. He glanced down the block. If I leave extra space, somebody else just takes it. First come, first serve. No attitude, no apology, just indifference. He backed out, nodded like the matter was settled, and drove off. I stood there, looking at the empty curb, and realized this wasn't really about him. He was just using the system exactly the way it allowed. If I wanted anything to change, I had to stop thinking about the guy and start thinking about the rules. So that night, instead of zoning out in front of the TV, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started reading city parking regulations, access rules, curb markings, all the stuff normal people only care about after they've been irritated for 3 straight weeks. Somewhere between a city PDF and an internet thread written by a man way too passionate about driveway law, I found exactly what I needed. Access protection marking. It wasn't a private permit. It was simple. If a gate needed clearance and parked cars were consistently interfering with access, you could request that the city mark a small section of curb as no parking. Not the whole area, just enough to keep access functional. The second I read that, I felt the frustration drain out of me. The problem had a real fix. The process was almost boring. Fill out a form, pay a small fee, upload a rough diagram showing how the gate swings. That was it. I sketched the gate, added arrows, took a couple photos, submitted everything, and then tried to forget about it. For the next 2 weeks, nothing changed. The gray sedan kept coming back, parking just close enough to be a problem. But every time I had to angle my way through that gate, I told myself something's already moving, even if I can't see it yet. Then one morning I woke up to a sound outside I didn't recognize. Low engine hum, metal clatter voices in the cold. I stepped onto the porch with my coffee and saw 2 city trucks, orange cones, and workers in reflective vests measuring the curb right in front of my gate. They worked fast, measured, marked, then painted a clean, bright line along exactly the stretch that had always caused the problem. Just a few feet. Not dramatic, not greedy, just precise. Enough room for the gate and not an inch more. That evening, the gray sedan was gone. More importantly, nobody parked in that little choke point anymore. I walked up, grabbed the handle, and pushed. The gate swung all the way open, smooth, easy, no tap, no resistance. I stood there holding it open longer than necessary, just letting that feeling settle in. It wasn't exactly victory, it was balance. I figured that was the end of it. Then a few days later, somebody knocked on my door. Not hard, not rude, just deliberate. I opened it and found a guy I'd never seen before, early 40s, maybe blazer, clean sneakers, expensive watch, trying not to look expensive. "Were you the one who requested the new curb marking?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, "that was me." He nodded. "I work over at Redwood Collective, the co-working place on the corner." And suddenly the whole thing clicked. The weekday pattern. The disappearing on weekends. The laptop bag guy. All of it. He gestured toward the street. "Parking's been getting tight for our members, and that marking made it a little tighter." He wasn't accusing me. That was what threw me. "I get that," I said, "but I didn't ask for a private spot. I asked for enough room to open my gate." He studied me for a second. Before this, was it really that bad? That question had layers. Was I solving a real problem, or had I just turned inconvenience into policy? So I told him the truth. It wasn't catastrophic, I said. But it kept happening. Trash day got stupid. Deliveries got awkward. Every normal thing was a little harder than it needed to be over and over. At some point, that adds up. You start feeling like your home has to bend around somebody else's routine. He didn't interrupt, just listened. Then he nodded once and said, "Yeah, that's fair." That was the twist I never saw coming. I'd been ready for an argument. Instead, I got understanding. He thanked me for explaining, turned, and walked away. Over the next week, the block changed. Fewer unfamiliar commuter cars, more open spaces during the busiest hours. Then I ran into another guy from Redwood Collective, and he mentioned that the co-working place had worked out discounted garage parking a couple streets over for members. Honestly, he said they should have done it sooner. And just like that, the whole thing made sense. My little curb marking hadn't started a war. It had forced a smarter solution. No tickets, no screaming match, no nasty notes on windshields. Just a system correcting itself after someone finally used it the way it was meant to be used. The gray sedan never came back. That's the part I keep thinking about. I didn't win a parking spot. I didn't run anybody off the block. I just stopped shrinking around a problem and handled it without making the whole street uglier. And I think there's a lesson in that. A lot of people will take as much space as the world lets them, not because they're monsters, but because your discomfort costs them nothing. If you stay quiet long enough, they start mistaking your patience for permission. I didn't really understand that until I was standing there with my hand on that gate, hearing it hit the same damn bumper again and again. Now the gate opens clean. Trash day takes 30 seconds. Delivery drivers don't have to play Tetris with my groceries. And every time I swing that gate all the way open without hearing metal touch a car, I get this quiet little rush of satisfaction, not because I beat someone, but because karma finally showed up wearing municipal paint. Still, I know this story can land 2 different ways. Some people hear it and think practical. Other people hear it and think power move. So let me ask you, when public space keeps creating a private burden, where's the line between protecting what you need and taking more than your share? Drop your take in the comments. Was I fair, petty, or just smart enough to stop letting other people's convenience run my life? And if you've ever solved a problem without a fight just by knowing the rules better than the person leaning on them, tell me that story too.